So, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today, as you can see, Enna Rightout is back, and we will start the year with a little bit lighter note. We are going to talk about feline woo. And Anna, you wrote an article about a Russian team that were interested in why cats purr. And I mean, why is that even funded? That is so funny.
Well, it's not only the Russians. The Russians compiled research from all sorts of places all around the world, particularly Britain. You know,
Mhm.
the British have a love affair with their cats too. And so, yeah, so they've been researching this mystery because they still don't know how exactly it happens, physiologically. So why do cats purr? And so basically the light-hearted conclusion was that cats decided to seduce humans, to make friends with humans by developing this particular skill. And so it's the domestication of humans by cats and not the other way around. And, the bit about, okay, I have to have a cat so that the mice don't destroy my food supplies. That's just a side effect.
Mhm.
The main thing is that the purr is this extraordinary thing that establishes the bonding between the human and the cat. And I mean, anybody who has a cat, like, well, you and I, does your cat purr?
Yes, but not only if I cuddle them. Sometimes they just purr when I do not, and sometimes I cuddle them and they do not purr. So,
Ah.
yeah. For instance,
Okay, the Russian scientists also discovered that there is more active purring from proletarian cats. Your cats are obviously, well, I've seen one of them, and she's, Evie. She's
Evie is Russian
obviously,
blue, yeah.
well, okay, so she's, sort of pedigree. My cats are, whoever mates with whomever out here in the countryside, and I get cats. So I've had, amongst the more or less 50 cats I must have had over the past 20 years, I have had beautiful white Siamese with blue eyes, a couple of beautiful, blue-gray Siamese with blue eyes. I've had pure black, I've had tabbies, I've had tigers, the stripy yellow or the stripy gray. Um, right now I have a very pale, 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 nearly white lady. But they basically, uh, yeah, and because they're all, countryside cats, and uh, they're extremely interested. They don't take it for granted that I feed them. Um, so being very, very sort of affectionate was part of the game. And so, the Russian scientists have determined that a noble cat who, lives in a proper house like yours, um, doesn't have to make such an effort to ensure the loyalty of the human, as opposed to a proletarian, needs to make that special effort to keep the bond going. So, but in fact, that is an extra argument in favor of the idea that it is cats who tried to seduce us first. It's they who decided to domesticate us for their purposes.
Um, I have noticed that
Are you convinced?
Yeah. I have noticed that my Evie, she has a habit in the evening. She always comes and then she sits here, you know, where my heart is. And she sits there for a long, long time. And she does that every day. And that is more or less our bonding time. And she she likes to purr. She also starts tapping my face with her paw, which I do not like so much because she has her claws out. I had one cat, when she touched me, she had her claws withdrawn, but Evie does not do that. And so that really hurts. But
Yeah, that's
But I cannot say that she is making less of an effort. She always has this is our special time. And then when I go to sleep, she always comes and then she rests on my chest. She purrs like a world champion. And then after a while, she sleeps just next to me.
well, mine does the same. I mean, as long as there isn't a guy waiting for her outside,
Mm.
putting me to bed. I think that's the maternal aspect. In a way, we are their children also. There's, I mean, there seems to be a whole complexity of attitudes that we can give our anthropomorphic names to. Of course, they're not our mothers, but there is something of that thing of, oh, I have to go and check that my human is okay. Oh, I have to go make sure that my human is gone to bed. You know, I get that feeling.
Mhm.
And, in the morning, I don't know whether mine talks a lot. It's there's a lot of chatter. And so, it's amazing how this relatively small creature sort of right there on the ground and sort of looking up at me and sort of, you're supposed to be doing this kind of thing. It, they, you know, they really have domesticated us.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Also, when okay, Evie, I found that one on the street, and but my other cats were usually from a shelter. And up to this day, I maintain that cats pick us, not the other way around, although we like to think that we pick them. Mm-mm. I remember when I brought Felix home, he was a tuxedo cat. He was the one who made
Bullshit. No, no.
he made the most noise when I entered that room. And at first I didn't see him. I only heard it. And then I noticed that in the back there are also more cats. So I entered into his place. And I said, yeah, okay, I think we are going home.
Yeah.
And but what I found interesting that the scientists were so hung up on the fact that cats do not have a gene for purring. Why do you need a gene for purring?
No, no, they do. It's at a particular point in time,
Mm,
probably around the Neolithic Revolution. I don't know, cats must have realized that humans were getting settled. It's difficult to bond with humans who are riding around on horses or camels all over the place, right? But
mm,
if humans are settled, ah, this can become an interesting relationship. Okay, once again, I'm giving an anthropomorphic conversation, putting an anthropomorphic discourse into the cat's mind, but they that is when all of a sudden this new gene appears
Oh,
in
okay.
the feline genome, okay? And that's the gene for purring. They've discovered that the cats that do not purr at all don't have the gene.
Oh, I misunderstood that. Sorry. Okay. So, and they identified that gene?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting in ancient Egypt, cats were very revered. I mean, um, harming or killing a cat, even by accident, was punishable by death. So, of course, then
No,
you
it does.
had this connection to this goddess Bastet and Sekhmet. Bastet, the goddess of house and fertility, and Sekhmet, the fierce defender. And Egyptians had the opinion that cats are a bridge to, yeah, let's say the other world, the world of the gods, something that we cannot see. And sometimes the
Yes.
behavior of my cats, um, I think that is true because they sometimes stare at a particular point and I see nothing.
Hmm.
Yeah, no insect, no. I mean, they do that as well. Or Evie, for instance, in the garden, when she finds a mouse, then she is very concentrated and is observing the situation. But then when I look and I think, well, what is she looking at? I see nothing.
No, but that's very much, I think that's the most important, aspect of it is that they do bridge between, the material and the subtle realms. And the interesting thing about that particular behavior of gazing is that it's the same behavior. They're seeing stuff in the immaterial world that they're using exactly the same thing. They have, uh, the sensory ability of vision that we used to have. We used to see also in the subtle universe, but we became more physical. Our ability to use our subtle sense, and it can be cultivated, it can return, but they have it naturally, and I think it's not only a question of the wavelength, of light. The scientific explanation would be that they can see wavelengths of light that we can't see. That's the scientific explanation, but I think it goes deeper than that. Um, in the business of the sacredness of cats, hmm, in the bit with Egypt, many gods and goddesses had the head of an animal.
Hmm.
So, the cats got normalized in the pantheon like that. Um, but I think there's something else about, well, all animals, but cats in particular, that connect to some kind of ancient shared wisdom. And I get the sense, when I go into a slightly altered state of consciousness, I get the sense that, the cat and I are together in that at the edge of the subtle realm, and that we're actually communicating or experiencing that place together. I have no, conscious idea of what is going on, but I feel that there is this thing happening there. And it happens in a particular way when the cat is with me.
Hmm.
So, and I have lots of love, with my dogs, but I don't get that with the dogs. And I get the sense that cats domesticated us so that they, well, help themselves. I mean, it's not about pure charity and altruism, but also so that they could help us and so that they could watch our progress. Because, hmm, if you have the wisdom of a cat that can see into the other realms, it's very interesting to see how a human operates,
Hmm.
because they're also seeing us in the subtle realm. I get that feeling that, mine is, hello. Yes, we're talking about you, my dear. Hello, come on. That's a girl. Hello, don't be shy.
Oh, cutie.
Well, they all are cuties. Anyway, no, she needs my lap.
Hmm.
When I'm working, she has to be on my lap with a shawl underneath her. I mean, there's the whole ritual. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. Cats are ritualistic. They're very ritualistic. They have this sense of the proper way of doing things. And, even the way I give her food. She has to see me put my fingers in her food. Otherwise, she won't touch it. I mean, all these weird little things, they're different for every cat. But I mean, these are really, there's something absolutely essential about, the communication of humans with animals. But with cats, well, they're the closest to us as, domestic animals. They're the easiest for us to keep, in the different sort of living conditions in which we live. And I think, have you made a contract with us, Isai? Yes? I'm purring, I'm purring.
I recently read something that cats, um, I mean, they notice you right away. I remember in Mombasa, there were, in that ho particular hotel where we stayed, there were three cats in the garden. But when the crews came in, there were not only our crew, other airlines. And with many people, they stayed in their hotel room and slept in the hotel room. So, and when I came, they recognized me, even if, several weeks were gone, they recognize you immediately. So this article said that cats do not see us as, you know, this human being with two legs, two arms. They see us more as a behavioral pattern. The
Mm-hmm.
way we walk, the way we talk, the way for instance, I can sometimes um, hear when somebody is in the hallway the way the key sounds when they
Mm-hmm.
pull out the key. It sounds different from the neighbor. So I know this neighbor is coming in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the same way with cats.
Oh, sure, sure. And they also, regularly when I have to go to the big city to go and do stuff, and I come back. The train drops me off in the local town at about 3:30 in the morning. On those days, uh, Tong, my local Thai hubby, he says the cat comes up to me and she goes, whereas normally at that time she's fast asleep. She's not interested in anything. But she comes and sort of she sits in front of him and she goes, ah. So, they've done that experiment with dogs. You change the time when you're coming back home from the office so that, it's not just the habit of the dog. The dog knows when you're coming back. Even when you change the time, you change the itinerary, you change all the parameters, the dog knows when you're coming back. And they've done it with dogs. And I don't know, they don't seem to have done it with cats, but my cat knows, you know, when I'm 400 kilometers away from here.
Yeah,
So,
and they find back when they get lost.
yes. Yeah, so yeah, I mean they've got their own GPS and they've got their own GPS also within, I have this sort of kind of sprawling messy house, unlike what looks like a very tidy apartment in your case. And she knows where everything has to be.
Hmm.
And she regularly, there's a crack in the wall, which she regularly has to go and monitor because she knows that sometimes there are snakes on the other side.
Hmm.
And that's the other thing. Cats are very good, um, sort of alert signals when there's a dangerous snake around.
Yeah, I have
In the
I have
past, about
witnessed.
cat.
Yeah, I have witnessed that one time in Mombasa. I was in the garden. I was sitting on my sunbed, and one of the females, she was on the grass a little bit further away, and all of a sudden she was very agitated. And I looked and I thought, well, what is going on there? And then I saw a snake coming up out of the grass, and the little one, and she was such a gentle cat, and she went, and then after a while, the boys came and brought the snake away. But it was really interesting to see how this gentle, tiny cat, so fierce and fearless, attacked the snake. Wow. Yeah.
And do you want some serious feline woo now?
Yeah.
Now that we're into the snakes,
Hmm.
I have this weird, it's not quite a certainty, but it's not a theory that, well, you know that snakes are, of course, these very ancient beings. And, well, for some people, they're the symbol of sin, but they're also the symbol of great wisdom. So there's this ancient wisdom in snakes. In the mythology, in the esoterica and all that kind of thing. Right. And I've been looking at all these cats over the past years. One day, it struck me that these are modified snakes,
Cats.
cats. Well, you've got the eyes.
Hmm.
Why should cats have the eyes that are very close to snake's eyes? When you look at I don't know how it is with your cats in Europe, but here, all the cats have a very flat head, and it's kind of triangular when you look from above. When you look from below, it's also very triangular. Hmm.
You are not
They've
the
got this
only
very
one
long,
saying that.
Okay, they've got this very long tail. Most animals do have long tails. Monkeys have long tails. That's for another purpose. But basically, they've got these long tails. And when they have my cats have never had the operation. And so when they go into, their fits of erotic tango, the way they flip around and twist around is kind of snake-like.
Mm.
I've had the privilege to see two harmless snakes mate here in the garden. I mean, normally, humans don't see this kind of thing. But one day I go out into the garden and there's these two snakes going like this, twining, and, half of their body going up vertical like this, and then they fall apart and they go a little bit further and they start all over again. And they went on for ages doing this. And right, in front of me. And I would follow them a little bit. They didn't sort of sneak away. They stayed right there to show me some more of their tango. And I had the same feeling when I watched some of my female cats, you know, displaying, they're displaying this dance to the guy who is waiting for them to calm down so that he can do his business. So the guy cat is watching all this kind of pop-eyed, just, okay, oh, this is, I don't know what the guy is thinking, but she's going all over the place like this. So that's another very kind of, so my sense is that, perhaps at some point in the Neolithic, some tribes of humans started getting afraid of the snakes, and a certain category of snake decided, okay, it's time for us to have a transformation so that we can, redeem the serpent realm in the eyes of humans and at the same time domesticate the humans. So, that's, I like that notion. And there's just something there's something, very slithery, snaky, in the way they go around your feet, around your ankles. It's sorry.
Yeah, you are not the only one who is saying that. I noticed that Sevan Boma, he said it a long, long time ago. And and especially with the eyes, so you would think that they have a common ancestor. Did you hear me?
At least a common ancestor.
Hmm. Okay.
I heard you. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. No, at least a common ancestor, at least. Um, but I'd like to put that. I think I did a Substack paper ages ago about a Russian paleozoologist, paleontologist. He studied it all in every direction, and he says, damn the Darwin idea. There's basically a blueprint, which is the human form. And the animals are derived from that. Beings way, way, way back when, millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago, um, figured, well, I've got a nice river here. I would just, you know, prefer to be a semi-aquatic animal. And so, why do animals all have two limbs at the front and two limbs at the back or at the bottom? Everybody has four limbs. That's, they could have six, they could have, it could be any other number. So anyway, his idea is that out of this blueprint of the human, different other beings figured, well, we're going to be different. We've got lots of trees here. We want to have, the ability to climb and jump from tree to tree. And so they decided to go for monkeys. And they adopted all sorts of ecological niches where they did not need to develop the kind of, technological skills that we've had to develop, and they haven't had to develop the kind of brain skills that we've had to develop. So they just do their thing, in their universe. But I find that idea of his is at least as reasonable as the Darwinian idea that, we all have a common ancestor with some kind of great ape. Why not? Why not all the animals derived from a human form as a blueprint? So in that perspective, the business of snakes with their great wisdom and intelligence figuring, let's grow some fur. I'm nice and cute, you know, and go and seduce the humans. That would be so interesting.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it was a conscious decision.
Yeah, whatever conscious, I mean, once again, when we're using these terms which
Mm.
have a particular meaning in our human experience, I mean, that's where we touch upon the issue of the genome of consciousness, which is not just the conscious mind. There is this ability, which is, whatever, our greater consciousness and their greater consciousness, where, why the hell have the animals not felt the need to develop language, like human language? Why do they just have, a certain number of seemingly stereotypical signals for each other, which can be, there can be a large repertoire, but they haven't developed, you know, like the mouth and the whole system that makes sounds in a very articulate, kind of complicated way. They haven't needed that. That's because they're operating in I don't know, uh, um, a bubble, a space, a realm of consciousness where, the sensory and the cognitive and the decision
Oh,
making
you're breaking up.
operate, under different, they're operating in a different kind of consciousness where the doing, the feeling, the sensing, the decision making, the judging happen in a completely different way,
Hmm.
which cannot be rationalized. We can't even rationalize it for ourselves the way we do it ourselves. So how it happens for them,
Um,
who knows? But there is
that have you heard of the Book of Jubilee? It doesn't matter.
that
It
religious,
it never made it into the
the
Bible.
Bible.
No, it is not in the Bible.
Ah,
It didn't make it into the Bible. Um, like for instance, the Book of Enoch also didn't make it into the Bible. And but in the Book of Jubilee, it says that there was a time when animals were able to speak. And
ah. Yeah, but that's the anthropomorphic, that's the apex of creation is the human being, and all the rest is less. Nah,
And why would they do you think that um yeah, how shall I put this? Um I think it is in our design that we develop speech. Yeah. Okay, not as a baby, you have to learn it. But
Yeah,
you have all the I do not believe that the skill of human speech is just a product of yeah
random.
random yeah it
Oh,
just
certainly not. Certainly not. I think I know that it has to do with the fact that we have a particular job of manifesting,
happened.
of bringing into this reality, this physical reality, stuff from the subtle reality.
Mhm,
Okay? I mean, the fact that in modernity we've gone completely into the material and we've lost contact with our subtle reality, that's one dead end, in that kind of evolutionary path. But fundamentally, we, in our fullest essence, have, I mean, it's part of what it is to be human, fundamentally, to be able to feel the essence of things, phenomena, beings, to feel how they vibrate, and to generate sounds, words that used to be harmonious with the vibration of that phenomenon or thing or being. Does that make sense?
Can you
That basically everything has a vibrational nature.
yeah.
Okay. Now, everything has a very subtle vibrational nature, which we used to feel. We used to communicate with that vibrational nature because we were in tune with our own subtle vibrational nature. And the business of developing languages was our contribution to this reality, one of our contributions in terms of bringing forth from the subtle vibration the names. Somewhere in the Bible or somewhere it is said that, it is in our power to name things.
Mhm,
And, like the name of a child that is going to come out of the womb is also very important. Children who feel that their name isn't theirs. There's something in traditional cultures, the naming of a new being was really important. So there is this sensitivity to the subtle vibrational nature of a phenomenon, a thing, a being, to which we were very sensitive. And it was our job to bring that subtle vibrational reality into recognition through the verbalization in, well, what we call language, with the help of the complex, machinery of vocalization and forming words that we have. Now, that has become, of course, completely abstract and completely divorced from that fundamental reality. But I, I mean, I work with that. I work with vibration behind or beneath the word that names, fundamental things like the sun or the earth or things like that. And I do it in different languages. So I really feel that this is real.
mhm.
Can't prove it. So no, I mean, you like it or you don't like it. But I think that is, one of the foremost functions of the reason why we have developed language. And, the interesting thing is that okay, now we now live with languages that are very, very intellectual, very mental, very disconnected from, but in traditional cultures, they don't speak very fast. Words tend to be chewed, they will form their sentences, apart from ritual sentences like, okay, have you had your rice this morning? No. But in like conventional sort of speech of peasants, it's usually pretty slow.
Mm.
And there are things that do not have a name.
Yeah, I
They
what would you what would you call such a traditional society? Because where you live in Thailand, sometimes when I listen to Thai people, oh my goodness, I have the impression a machine gun goes off so fast they are talking. You
oh,
know?
traditional yeah, traditional society it's nearly dead here.
Mhm.
But I was 35 years ago when I first went to these remote villages in India. It was very, very clear like that. And when I was a kid, even in Europe, I'm 70 years old after all, so I did have the chance to still experience the way, you know, okay, unless people were drunk, but
Mhm.
when they had these, just normal day-to-day conversations about day-to-day life, the life of a peasant, words words had a weight, words had a substance. Um, because actions, there was also not the same kind of divorce between the speech and doing and the deed that we have, as modern urban, hyper mental people. We are, the divorce between our language and what we do is pretty drastic. And I only realize this because I've been living the past 30 plus years amongst poor people of a completely different um, constitution. I realize now that I I realize what we've lost, as modern people in terms of that internal consistency. But
By internal consistency.
yeah, the internal consistency of being like an integral human being, not broken up into little pieces.
Broken up into little
Am
pieces.
I being too obscure?
Um, what does that look like? A human being that is broken up into little pieces.
Well, people who don't know,
Who they are?
they might think they know that they have a soul. They haven't a clue,
Mm.
how it operates, with their full being, or the fact that they're going to cultivate their physicality to become very beautiful, very fit, very muscular, they're very this, that, and the other, or very healthy. Um, or they're going to say that this reality is an illusion, and consequently, you've got all these sort of new age or post-Christian things about, rapture and all this other stuff. The dissociation of who we are as a subtle being and as an embodied being, but also, the fact that the ego mind drives everything we think, everything we do. And most people don't realize it. The fact that people, they want to experience love, but who they are emotionally is so fragile or so suppressed or so angry or so traumatized. They're, the controlling part of them in the mind can't afford to go there. I mean, the disharmony, and I'm like just even the physical disharmony of people's bodies, of people, how people walk. I see this here. When I first came to Thailand 45 years ago, I would just look at the people, and they walked beautifully. And I'm not talking about the ordinary people, in the streets. And they were, there was this natural sort of gracefulness. Now, nowhere, nowhere. And, the more you need to remedy what you think is a dysfunctional or ugly body, the more you're going to put stuff on your face, and you're going to sort of put more frills on your skirt or whatever. It's that's part of the dissociation also. The people are not living inside their bodies. They feel pain, okay? When they feel sick, go to the doctors very quickly. Cannot handle your sick body on your own. But otherwise, they don't live in their bodies as a as a living entity that is communicating, whether you feel it or not, with your environment, with the other beings around you, and with the complexity of what it is to be a physical and a subtle human being. That is all cut up into little pieces.
Okay. Do you have an idea when that changed, and what do you think was the reason that this graceful way of walking disappeared?
Well, I mean, here it's quite clear that, it's the advent of uh, a lot of Western imagery,
Hmm.
lots of consumer goods. When you start developing a less developed economy, one of your major things is to develop the consumer economy with convenience stores and sort of cheap stuff, cheap toys for the kids, stuff so that people get into the habit of buying stuff and needing stuff that they never needed before. And, they look at all the fashion that comes from the West or from Korea, and, they start imitating it. But this is true, this is true elsewhere. It's not only here. When you start feeling that, oh, that on that side of the fence, they're more beautiful than I am, or they're stronger than I am, or they're this, that, and the other more or less than I am. You start comparing. The more you start comparing, the less you are inhabiting the specific entity that you are. It's as simple as that. But the fragmentation of the human being, how long ago it started? Well, I definitely believe that the advent of organized religion as part of the organization of complex states, stratified states, started removing from us our natural, intrinsic, direct relationship to the transcendent, to the subtle world, to our communication, with the whole world around us in subtle terms. So when we lose that direct connection, and we are told what the divine is, And we are told that we can only access the divine through the mediation of a priest. And then we're told that we're, a bunch of shit, and we need to have a redemption, somebody to
Redeem us.
redeem us.
Mm.
And your favorite savior syndrome, um, that's the fundamental fragmentation, is the fragmentation of who we are physically from who we are. I'm not going to say spiritually, subtly. I prefer that, because spiritual, there again, I mean, people take it in terms of religion. But when that bond is broken, um, it doesn't mean that our subtle selves are no longer working, but they're working. Our subtle self has more trouble communicating with our physical self, and consequently our physical self becomes more prone to disease, becomes easier to frighten, and consequently easier to control and to manipulate and to brainwash even further.
Mhm. How do we get that back?
Well, first you have to accept the possibility or the postulate that you are not just, the physical self that you know or that you think you know. And then you have to start getting interested in what your body is conveying to you, just the sensory body, the feelings that you have in the bits of pain, the bits of this, that, and the other, or the feelings of joy, of fullness, of that, how it expresses itself physically, and how the physical and the emotional, you feel, it's a matter of feeling. And then it's a matter of getting curious about the subtle world, which is the larger part of us, is our subtle self. Um, you know, some people will meditate for 40 years before they start feeling that. There are all sorts of ways, uh, the book, the other book that I did, Broody Blue, was one way in terms of getting to feel. I live in my practical material life with a virtually constant background awareness that I don't need to be consciously aware. It's an awareness, it's sensory, that, there's a cloud of me. There's, that I am much more than, this tiny little body. There is this much, much larger, and it's very flexible, it's very plastic. If recently I had the experience of doing remote energy healing on a friend, thousands of kilometers away. And I just felt, I did not decide this, but I felt that this subtle me grew two extremely long arms that went to the other side of the earth to go and sort of massage this person's subtle body.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't invent these things. But there is, I mean, there are many, but the most direct method is to just start feeling. I mean, it's stupid to say, but there's a slightly more sophisticated non-method in that book of mine, which starts with the realization that, oh, it's not, I am not breathing, something is breathing me. And once you've got that realization, to start just sitting a little bit every day in the feeling of being breathed. And then from there are all sorts of, it becomes increasingly vast. Like, sort of like every day I'll have a moment when I just let myself be breathed by infinity. And it's not a mental thing. My awareness goes out to infinity. And I can't measure infinity. Perhaps it's just 10 kilometers away. It doesn't matter because time and space are not, in the subtle world, time and space are not what they are in our rational physicality. It's a different system. And we can't fully know that system. We can't control it with our minds. So the main thing to be able to recover that sense of wholeness between the subtle and the physical self is to accept that we can't know. There's this sort of attitude of it's both humility, but not humility like this. It's just like, wow,
Hmm.
and gratitude.
Hmm.
And
Is it?
it completely transforms your life
Yeah.
and makes for fantastic purring concerts with the cat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, isn't it interesting where we ended up? Talking about cats, why they purr, how they domesticated us, and all of a sudden we are somewhere else.
Well, yes, because well, as you said right at the beginning, there's something otherworldly about them.
Mm.
But they know the otherworldliness of us also. They recognize it. And that I think that is part of the bonding also. And I think that the purring is the physical vibrational manifestation of that the subtle thing in them that resonates with the subtle thing in us. And there's this, I think this precisely, purring, that they still don't know what the mechanical physiological mechanism is that makes this purring. This to me, they know so many things about so much stuff that this mechanical physiological mechanism is still not known is another indicator that it is something that is rooted very, very firmly in the subtle realm where they can communicate with us and we can communicate with them.
Mm. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, when you come to think of that, the gift, the gift that they've brought to us, these so small creatures, who are so unafraid of snakes. And, God, I've sometimes seen a mother cat here, and there's a whole bunch of dogs, and she's got her baby somewhere in the kitchen. She's going to rise up, and and I've got this. We now have two dogs, and I'm down to one cat. She is completely fearless. She lies down amongst the dogs, turning her back to them, showing, see if I care, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm smaller than all of you, but I am much more powerful. So, yeah, what a gift. What a gift to us that, if they come from snakes, well, this would be another indication of the wisdom of snakes. Yes, humans need the help of animals, not just, you know, to do work for them, but to actually teach them proper communication.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really interesting, and I think we can leave it at that. And yeah, my Russian blue didn't turn up today. She is comfortably sleeping. That
Well,
is,
I'm sure she knows that we're talking about her.
oh, of
And
course.
she's probably, to what extent does their subtle sense translate the things we say? I don't think so. I think they're not interested in, our discourse. But it'll be interesting to see if she gives you an extra dose of seduction, as a reward for having spent this whatever hour or so with Anna talking about nothing but cats and celebrate the wisdom of Evie and all her friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Anna, thank you so much. That was a great conversation, and I would love to have you back soon. And if the circumstances allow for it, we will certainly do it. Let's hope that the world is not getting too crazy in 2026.
Of course, yes, it becomes very crazy, but
Yeah, I know. I know.
there are these cracks,
Yeah.
okay? And that's the whole point. It's because a certain paradigm of reality is falling apart now.
Mhm.
There are all sorts of cracks amidst the digital gulags and the this, that, and the other. There are all these cracks where we can exist, like weeds. Coming out through the concrete. Yay.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, guys, that was it. Night flight for today. And we see you on the next one.